Welcome to Sports Live Media on YouTube. It's your guy, Sports Live, broadcasting live today, January 7th, 2026. We are set to do Season 1, Episode 8 of Hoops and Pucks and Wednesdays, Oh My. We will deal with men's college basketball, women's college basketball, NBA basketball, NBA G League basketball, and hockey from various associations and leagues. The fact that it's the Wednesdays oh my is because all games that are discussed will take place today, Wednesday, January 7th, and all games that we discuss in this will take place on Wednesdays, depending on whatever week it is. Um, can y'all hear me out there in YouTube land? All right, before I go on, we need to go over the Associated Press Top 25 Women's College Basketball Poll. You have number 1, UConn, number 2, Texas, number 3, South Carolina, number 4, UCLA, number 5, Oklahoma, number 6, Kentucky, number 7, Vanderbilt, number 8, Maryland, number 9, Michigan, number 10, Louisville, number 11, Iowa State, number 12, LSU, number 13, TCU, number 14, Iowa. Number 15, Michigan State. Number 16, Baylor. Number 17, Texas Tech. Number 18, Ole Miss. Number 19, Ohio State. Number 20, Tennessee. Number 21, USC. Number 22, North Carolina. Number 23, Washington. Number 24, Princeton. And number 25, Nebraska. That's your top 25 for the college women's basketball. Now, let's look and see who's playing today, and I'll tell you who I'm going to pick to have win those games. According to this, you have Rhode Island versus George Washington, Kent State versus Central Michigan, Lafayette versus Boston University, St. Joseph's versus Davidson, St. Bonaventure versus DeQuesne, Fordham versus Richmond, Colgate versus American University, Longwood versus Charleston Southern, High Point versus Presbyterian, Lehigh versus Holy Cross, Navy versus Bucknell, Northern Illinois versus Buffalo, Old Dominion versus Marshall, James Madison versus Georgia Southern, Iowa State versus Cincinnati, Toledo versus Ball State. So I'll go ahead and make my picks for those games. And I'll have George Washington defeating Rhode Island. I have Kent State defeating Central Michigan. I have Boston University defeating Lafayette. St. Joseph's defeating Davidson. St. Bonaventure defeats DeQuesne. Fordham defeats Richmond. Colgate defeats the American University. Charleston Southern defeats Longwood. Presbyterian defeats High Point. Lehigh defeats Holy Cross. Navy defeats Bucknell. Northern Illinois will defeat Buffalo. Old Dominion will defeat Marshall. James Madison will defeat Georgia Southern. Iowa State will defeat Cincinnati. And Ball State defeats Toledo. More women's games. We have Coastal Carolina versus App State, Ohio State versus Illinois, Texas Tech versus West Virginia, Loyola Chicago versus Dayton, LaSalle versus George Mason, Georgetown versus Butler, Winthrop versus South Carolina Upstate, Army versus Loyola Maryland, UNC Asheville versus Gardner-Webb, Wright State versus Cleveland State, Massachusetts versus Miami and Ohio, Eastern Michigan versus Ohio University, Akron versus Western Michigan, Texas State versus Troy, St. John's versus UConn, Oklahoma State versus TCU, Utah versus Kansas, Kansas State versus Houston, VCU versus St. Louis, Florida Atlantic versus Memphis, Charlotte versus Rice, New Mexico versus Colorado State, Boise State versus Air Force, UCF versus Arizona State, Grand Canyon versus San Diego State, San Jose State versus Fresno State, Utah State versus UNLV, Wyoming versus Nevada. In those games, I have Coastal Carolina defeating App State, Illinois losing to Ohio State, West Virginia losing to Texas Tech, Loyola Chicago losing to Dayton, George Mason defeating LaSalle. Georgetown defeating Butler. Winthrop defeats South Carolina Upstate. Army defeats Loyola, Maryland. UNC Asheville defeats Gardner-Webb. Gardner-Webb defeats UNC Asheville. You have Cleveland State defeating Wright State. Miami and Ohio defeating Massachusetts. Eastern Michigan defeating Ohio University. Akron defeating Western Michigan. Texas State losing to Troy. UConn defeating St. John's. TCU defeating Oklahoma State. Kansas will defeat Utah. Kansas State will defeat Houston. St. Louis will defeat VCU. Florida Atlantic will defeat Memphis. Charlotte will defeat Rice. New Mexico will defeat Colorado State. Boise State will defeat Air Force. Arizona State will defeat UCF. San Diego State defeats Grand Canyon. San Jose State defeats Fresno State. UNLV will defeat Utah State. And Nevada will defeat Wyoming. Those are my picks for the women's college basketball. So now let's go into men's college basketball. And before going into the games, let's look at their Associated Press top 25. You have number 1, Arizona. Number 2, Michigan. Number 3, Iowa State. Number 4, UConn. Number 5, Purdue. Number 6, Duke. Number 7, Houston. Number 8, Gonzaga. Number 9, BYU. Number 10, Nebraska. Number 11, Vanderbilt. Number 12, Michigan State. Number 13, Alabama. Number 14, Texas Tech. Arkansas, Illinois. Number 17, North Carolina. Number 18, Georgia. Number 19, Iowa. Number 20, Louisville. Number 21, Tennessee. Number 22, Kansas. Number 23, Virginia. Number 24, SMU. Number 25, UCF. Now, for the men's games, I'll do like I did for the women's games, go over one page of notes, and then, we'll go from that. All right, so it looks like we have Loyola, Maryland versus Alfred, Indiana versus Maryland, Longwood versus UNC Asheville, Charleston Southern versus Winthrop, UConn versus Providence, Belmont versus Northern Iowa, American University versus Colgate, St. Louis versus VCU, Richmond versus St. Bonaventure, LaSalle versus Rhode Island, George Mason versus Fordham, DeQuesne versus St. Joseph, East Carolina versus Temple. So my pick for those games, and these are just my picks. I could be right, I could be wrong, but these are who I think will win the games. I believe Chattanooga defeats Furman. Lehigh defeats Holy Cross. Army will defeat Loyola in Maryland. Wofford defeats UNC Greensboro. Indiana defeats Maryland. Longwood defeats UNC Asheville. UConn will defeat Belmont loses to Northern Iowa. American University loses to Colgate. VCU defeats St. Louis. St. Bonaventure defeats Richmond. Rhode Island defeats LaSalle. George Mason defeats Fordham. DeQuesne defeats St. Joseph's. East Carolina defeats Temple. All right, more men's games today in college basketball. You have Boston University versus Lafayette, Presbyterian versus Radford, Gardner-Webb versus High Point, Xavier versus Marquette, Miami and Florida versus Wake Forest, Stanford versus Virginia Tech, Bucknell versus Navy, Western Carolina versus Samford, the Citadel versus Mercer, VMI versus East Tennessee State, Marshall versus James Madison, Missouri versus Kentucky, Oklahoma versus Mississippi State, Missouri State versus Kennesaw State, Florida International versus Jacksonville State. Purdue Fort Wayne versus Youngstown State, Rice versus Wichita State, Florida Atlantic versus UAB, Creighton versus Villanova, Iowa State versus Baylor, Illinois State versus Valparaiso, Southern Illinois versus UIC, Murray State versus Evansville, South Florida versus North Texas, Charlotte versus UTSA, Troy versus Arkansas State, Washington versus Purdue, Kansas State versus Arizona, Arizona State versus BYU, Alabama versus Vanderbilt, Arkansas versus Ole Miss, California versus Virginia, Drake versus Bradley, Davidson versus Loyola Chicago, Utah versus Colorado. My picks for those games are as follows. Let's see. Boston University versus Lafayette. I have Lafayette beating the Boston University. Presbyterian will defeat Radford. High Point defeats Gardner Webb. Marquette will defeat Xavier. Miami and Florida defeats Wake Forest. Stanford defeats Virginia Tech. Navy will defeat Bucknell. Samford will defeat Western Carolina. Mercer defeats the Citadel. VMI beats East Tennessee State. James Madison loses to Marshall. Missouri will defeat Kentucky. Oklahoma loses to Mississippi State. Missouri State will lose to Kennesaw State. Jacksonville State wins over Florida International. Youngstown State defeats Purdue Fort Wayne. Rice will defeat Wichita State. Florida Atlantic defeats UAB. Creighton defeats Villanova. Iowa State defeats Baylor. Illinois State will defeat Valparaiso. UIC will defeat Southern Illinois. Evansville defeats Murray State. South Florida loses to North Texas. Charlotte loses to UTSA. Arkansas State defeats Troy. Purdue will defeat Washington. Arizona will defeat Kansas State. BYU defeats Arizona State. Vanderbilt will defeat Alabama. Arkansas defeats Ole Miss. California will lose to Virginia. Duke will beat Bradley. Davidson will defeat Loyola and Chicago. And Utah will lose to Colorado. So before moving on, let's go back over the Associated Press polls for men and women's college basketball, starting with the women first. You have number 1, UConn, number 2, Texas, number 3, South Carolina, number 4, UCLA, number 5, Oklahoma, number 6, Kentucky, number 7, Vanderbilt, number 8, Maryland, 9, Michigan, number 10, Louisville, number 11, Iowa State, number 12, LSU, number 13, TCU, number 14, Iowa, number 15, Michigan State, number 16, Baylor, number 17, Texas Tech, number 18, Ole Miss, number 19, Ohio State, number 20, Tennessee, number 21, USC, number 22, North Carolina, number 23, Washington, number 24, Princeton, and number 25, Nebraska. Now for the men's top 25, you have Arizona at number 1, number 2, Michigan, number 3, Iowa State, number 4, UConn, number 5, Purdue, number 6, Duke, number 7, Houston, number 8, Gonzaga, number 9, BYU, 10, Nebraska, number 11, Vanderbilt, number 12, Michigan State, number 13, Alabama, number 14, Texas Tech, number 15, Arkansas, number 16, Illinois, number 17, North Carolina, number 18, Georgia, number 19, Iowa, number 20, Louisville, number 21, Tennessee, number 22, Kansas, number 23, Virginia, number 24, SMU, and number 25 will be UCF. That has the men and women's college basketball taken care of for this week on Wednesdays. Now, let's look at the regular NBA basketball schedule. You have Toronto versus Charlotte, Chicago versus Detroit, Washington versus Philadelphia, Denver versus Boston, New Orleans versus Atlanta, Orlando versus Brooklyn, Los Angeles versus New York Knicks, Phoenix versus Memphis, Utah versus Oklahoma City, Los Angeles Lakers versus San Antonio, Milwaukee versus Golden State, Houston versus Portland. My picks for the games today for the regular NBA. I have Charlotte defeating Toronto. I have Detroit defeating Chicago. Philadelphia defeats Washington. Denver defeats Boston. New Orleans defeats Atlanta. Orlando defeats Brooklyn. New York Knicks defeats the one Los Angeles team. Phoenix defeats Memphis. Oklahoma City defeats Utah. The Los Angeles Lakers defeats San Antonio. Milwaukee loses to Golden State. And Houston loses to Portland. Now we will move to the NBA G League. Those games will go on today. In the NBA G League, you have Motor City versus Capital City, Oklahoma City versus Valley, Cleveland versus Mexico City, and Rio Grande Valley versus Stockton. So I have Capital City defeating Motor City, Oklahoma City defeats Valley, Mexico City defeats Cleveland, and Rio Grande Valley loses to Stockton. In the NHL for hockey today, we will now move to the hockey section of things. We have Dallas versus Washington, Calgary versus Montreal, St. Louis versus Chicago, Ottawa versus Utah, San Jose versus Los Angeles. So I have Dallas defeating Washington, Calgary defeats Montreal, St. Louis will lose to Chicago, Ottawa loses to Utah, San Jose will defeat Los Angeles. Now, the AHL, the American Hockey League, you have Rochester versus Syracuse, Cleveland versus Toronto, Springfield versus Utica, Texas versus Grand Rapids, Henderson versus Coachella Valley, Iowa versus Ontario, San Jose versus San Diego, Bakersfield versus Abbott Ford. I have Rochester defeating Syracuse, Cleveland defeats Toronto, Utica will defeat Springfield, Grand Rapids defeats Texas, Henderson loses to Coachella Valley, Iowa defeats Ontario, San Diego will defeat San Jose, and Bakersfield will defeat Abbott Ford. Next, you have the ECHL hockey games, which are today. You have Worcester versus Adirondack, Kalamazoo versus Bloomington, Tulsa versus Kansas City, Wichita versus Allen, Greensboro versus Idaho. I'm going to go with Adirondack beats Worcester, Kalamazoo defeats Bloomington, Kansas City defeats Tulsa, Wichita defeats Allen, Idaho defeats Greensboro. Next, you have the Professional Women's Hockey League game. That is going to be Seattle versus Boston. I have Boston beating Seattle. There are several hockey leagues that do not have games today, but they do have a league and they do have games. That includes the NAHL, no game scheduled for today. The SPHL, no game scheduled for today. The FPHL, no game scheduled for today. College men's hockey, women's college hockey, no game scheduled. The ACHA, no hockey scheduled in men's Division 1 or 2. But in Division 3, they have Texas Tech University versus Western Colorado, and I'm going to go Western Colorado over Texas Tech University. Also, in the ACHA, there's no hockey games for women in Division 1 or Division 2. So there you have it. Those are my picks for today for college basketball, men and women's college basketball, NBA G League, regular NBA games, National Hockey League, and all of the other hockey leagues that I have today. So I do thank you for tuning in to this broadcast today. It is greatly appreciated. If you will, please hit the like button, please hit the subscribe button, please hit the notification bell so you can be made aware of when I'm doing these live streams, when I have sports action videos, when I have sports education videos, again, when I broadcast live, or when I have breaking news in the sports world. Also, if you wish to subscribe to the channel, it is greatly appreciated. You can do so two ways. One, you can go to www.youtube.com, the slash symbol, the at symbol, SPORTSLOV, or you can go on the YouTube search tab and with the two words, Sportslov Media, SPORTSLOV as the first word, media as the second word, MEDIA. You'll know it's me because I'll have Sportslov Media burned into a basketball as my avatar. I'm also on Twitter X. My handle there is at BobAmin16. That is at BOBAMIN16 for my handle on Twitter and X. Just to let you know a couple of things. One, once the college football semifinal games are over with, we will do a special live stream called The Road to the National Championship. And that will take, I'm not sure when that will take place, but it will be before the national championship for men's college football. We will also do a stream regarding NFL playoffs. This week, we'll look at the results from the previous games and who's playing and some analysis on that as best we can do. We will have additional live streams where we can. When it comes to stuff, we may have some live streams regarding live coverage of some actual live sports, but that will be announced when it gets closer to time for that and when it will happen. Also, join me again on Wednesday of next week for season 1, episode 9 of Hoops and Pucks and Wednesdays. Oh my! We will do that on Wednesday mornings. And we will deal with college basketball, men and women's college basketball, the NBA G League, the NBA as a whole, National Hockey League games, and other hockey games that will be going on within the different leagues and whatnot. We'll continue also to be having sports action videos when we have those, and I'll let you know when those are coming. We're still going to continue doing breaking news, and we may have some other special reports as they come out and everything. So stay tuned for all of that. For those in the chat that joined me and I didn't get to say hello to you, I do apologize for that. But thank you for joining me. It is greatly appreciated. So anyway, we may have some additional live streams, when we can. But I'll try to let you know as best I can. I know I didn't let y'all know that I was going live this morning, but I didn't know that I was going live this morning. So anyway, I do thank each and every one of you for joining me today. It is a great privilege to share sports information with you and stuff. There's a lot going on. I'm sure there'll be a lot of different types of breaking news. We just got through the period of time dealing with what they call Black Sunday and Monday. In the NFL, that basically is the day where, or the period when NFL coaches will get fired and or go somewhere else. We've dealt with the college football carousel pretty well, but I don't see any new firings coming from that. But I do think there are potential more coming for the NFL. I could be wrong, but I'll stay on top of that as best I can. Anyway, thank you again for tuning into the broadcast today. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Sports Live Media signing out. Thank you.